World History Discussions on the Traditions and Encounters textbook, Chapter 6, Part 13, moving on from the Americas and hitting the Pacific Islands, which is, I would argue, a very rarely studied piece of world history. Remember, this textbook was printed in Hawaii, which might be why they actually give this region of the world some attention. Yay! And we're also going to talk about another major language group migration, the Micronesians, and boy is this impressive in terms of the seafaring. But let's start at the beginning. 50,000 years ago, humans reached Australia and New Guinea, which, as you can see in the Ice Age, were connected by a land bridge in what's now the Torres Strait. But about 10,000 years ago, rising sea levels separated Australia from New Guinea. Australia remained hunter-gatherer, and they found abundant plant life even in the harsh deserts, such as Alice Springs right there, where they found 124 plants they could use as medicines, ointments, and drugs, and they used boomerangs to bring down large animals from rats to kangaroos. They hunted the giant kangaroos into extinction. They never developed agriculture in Australia, though, and they remained hunter-gatherers until the English prisoner colony arrived in 1788. Much, much later, many chapters down the road when we get to that. I believe that's chapter 24 that will hit the prisoner colony. It's a long way away. But anyway, about 5,000 years ago, or 3000 BCE, same era as your river valley civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia developing writing, same era, the Micronesians from Southeast Asia migrate into New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, and they bring agriculture with them. So let's talk about the Micronesians a bit. They're a seafaring group from Southeast Asia who speak Austronesian languages. We talked about the Indo-Europeans in Chapter 2, spreading all over Europe, plus to places like Anatolia, Iran, and India. Then in Chapter 3, we talked about the Bantus spreading from the Niger-Congo region to pretty much everywhere in sub-Saharan Africa. And remember in Chapter 3, I said everywhere in sub-Saharan Africa except for the island of Madagascar off the east coast of Africa, because that was an Austronesian migration that went west over the Indian Ocean, while most of the other ones went east over the Pacific Ocean, and they were amazing sailors. But before we get to their amazing and epic voyages all over the Pacific Islands, with their outrigger canoes, twin hulls on the deck, and how they paid close attention to the winds, currents, cloud formations, and other natural indicators to find distant lands and return home safely, let's first talk about what they did right here in New Guinea 5,000 years ago, around 3000 BCE. They introduced yams, taro, pigs, and chickens to New Guinea. So they brought settled agriculture, which led to population growth and specialized labor. Agriculture even spread to the Torres Strait region between New Guinea and Australia. Remember, this is after the Ice Age, and there actually is a strait there. But Australia never adopted agriculture. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe they just thought it was too harsh a desert. But basically, yeah. However, the hunter-gatherers of Australia had inhabited the Bismarck and Solomon Islands right there back in the days when the sea levels were much lower. But they did not have the maritime technology to spread out east into the rest of the Pacific. And even if they had, these islands further out here that we're going to talk about in the next discussion had very little wildlife and would not have supported foragers. Austronesians brought crops and cultivated these lands after killing off what little wildlife there was, which included flightless birds who had evolved that way probably due to how few natural predators there were. So basically, the Micronesians migrate from Southeast Asia down into Papua New Guinea and bring agriculture to the region about 3000 BCE, or 5,000 years ago, and then about 1500 BCE, they reach New Caledonia and start spreading through the Pacific Islands. And we're going to talk about these amazing ocean voyages and Lapita Society next.